Richard told me when we discussed first this panel, he said, you know, you have one and only mission. You don't have to manage academic people, you have to talk about what is practical, and you talk with practitioners. So we are going to do something which relates to the former panel. First of all, I'm going to use them for the core competencies. So thank you, Gary. Of course, I will expect them to have an integrative thinking. Thank you, Roger. And definitely we'll try to be disruptive. Many thanks, Clay. For this, so we have 3 people on stage, and being disruptive is also not to try to go through their life and so on. If you take the wonderful little book that you have, the white book, you will find all the bios of Rick, of Nancy, and of Vineet. The good thing is better maybe for me to ask you, each one of you, actually when Richard asked you to join here, why did you say yes? Maybe let's start with Rick. Why yes? Why are you here, in a way?
Well, firstly, in honor of Peter Drucker, and this is an organization. These are the fledgling years of this, and I have watched Richard get behind this and momentum increase. It get bigger and bigger, and interesting. We have really started to dig into some very important subjects. So I come here to add to it, but also my primary reason is as a student, and I take lots of notes. That's why I'm here.
That's great. It's not your first time, by the way.
No.
All right. Super. Thank you, Rick, for being with us. Nancy, what is your answer to this? Why did you say yes?
It's my first time. Thank you.
It's your first time?
Yes. I'm very
Welcome. Maiden flight with us.
Yes. I mean, a lot of it is being a lifelong learner, but I like the idea of are we at a turning point? And I feel like in my practice every day at Whirlpool, every week, every year, I'm asking that question, what direction are we going to take? Are we going to move forward, or are we going to move back? And so I think just the notion of debating that and talking about that is very interesting to me.
Super. Excellent. So welcome, because
Thank you.
I hope you will enjoy it. And you, Vineet, why are you here?
So yes, this is my first time here, but this is not the first time I've said yes. I'm married. So the reason I'm here is high-performance teams and high-performance individuals do impossible things by thinking outside the boundaries of logic and reason. I'm here to be inspired, and I'm here to inspire so that more and more of us attempt the impossible. That's the reason I'm here.
Very nice. Thank you very much. What I suggest is this. We have 45 minutes, a bit less now. There is maybe, yes. What we want to do is to have a very interactive session. So if you agree, I will go back to the wonderful discussions we had before with Adi and the 3 stars. And maybe let's focus on 3 questions that has been addressed, be it by Roger, by Gary, or by Clay. And after a short range of questions, then definitely you will have the opportunity to ask our panel here your own questions. Question number 1, I would say let's stick to 3 ideas actually that we saw. The idea number 1 is the idea that, in a way, Gary promoted, which is this new technology, this digitalization is flattening, in a way, the world of, or should flattening a bit more the world of organizations, horizontalizing this world. So I know that, Nancy, for instance, you're very much on this question of the democratic innovation, or innovation by democracy. What do you think of it, and what is your viewpoint on this?
Thank you. I think about Whirlpool starting its innovation journey in 1999, and our previous CEO was a gentleman named Dave Whitwam, and at the time he said, I want innovation from everywhere and everyone. And it doesn't seem like a new idea now, but in 1999 that was very revolutionary. Because in 1999 what we saw was Silicon Valley and a few geniuses, but the notion that you could come into a company like Whirlpool, which is 100 years old, brick and mortar, manufacturer of bending metal and appliances, and have everyone in every function at every level, in every location innovate was very new. And so that democratization of innovation started a big movement at Whirlpool, a big transformation. It's 16 years later, we still are trying to move that forward. We never quite get there. Our present CEO, Jeff Fettig, likes to say we're perpetually dissatisfied. But that's kind of a Midwest American way of saying we're always continuously learning and trying to move forward. And I think when you think about democratizing innovation and having it from everyone, the thing that is so interesting is great ideas have no prejudice. They don't care if they come from a VP, from inside or outside. And so I think the role of leaders and the role of organizations is to break down all these old barriers to allow everyone to innovate. And that means not just putting the ideal, but training and supporting and changing infrastructure so that everyone can do it.
And actually, how did you turn a conviction, which I understand is your conviction, into something that is shared in your company? Because this is where definitely the experience is very interesting and relevant, I would say.
Yeah. You know, at the beginning, we had a few decisions to make. One was, would everyone in the company use the same innovation process? And we decided for our company, for our culture, it's important that everyone had a common language, a common set of tools, so that engineers, marketers, product people, whoever from around the world could come together and quickly innovate. The other thing that happened is our previous chairman went around the world before we even knew how to do this and started talking in every location to everyone on the factory floor, blue-collar workers, secretaries, vice presidents, saying, I believe in you and I want you to innovate. And I'm going to train you, and I'm going to give you resources. And so he started, one of our other speakers, I think it was Gary, started putting this pressure on the top to try to quickly figure out how to do that.
That's fine. Excellent. We'll come back on this because,
Okay.
I mean, this Whirlpool experience is interesting in many ways. Second, also because it's not like Google or LinkedIn, because, you know, if these people come here, of course, everybody can see the impact of getting digital. But in your case, this was not the origin of the company, so that's why it's interesting to see how to transform, I would say, a conventional business, or let's say something much more known, into something new. Great, thank you very much. Vineet, I know this is a very interesting discussion because every time I listen to you, I had many times the occasion to listen to you. I know that for you it's also a profound change, this impact of digital. But I know that you are also a little bit, I would say not critical, but what do you mean by profound change? What is it really changing according to you?
So from my vantage point of view, when I started the journey of transformation in HCL Technologies in year 2005, one thing which was very clear to me is the fact that everybody around us knew that we needed to transform other than we ourselves. So the 30,000 people at that particular time didn't want any transformation. I think that is true with a lot of companies today, and Clay, Gary, and Roger alluded to that in this session. And the reason for that, in my mind, is that in the historical Jack Welch days, as we call it, what really got people to grow was a combination of three things: a great idea, a great leader, and excellent execution, globalization execution. And with the internet and technology coming in, that word execution is really becoming not that difficult to do. That today you can set up a company in a day's time, and you can reach the remote corners of the world in the second day's time. And that is getting replaced with a new word called experience. And therefore, standardization is moving towards customization. And hence, technology is underlining, challenging all the brick and mortar companies on their core business model. And therefore, the need for transformation has never been felt before, never so much. However, a lot of companies are not looking at it, like HCL Technologies was not looking at it, the fact that they need to transform. And when you take that argument a little forward in terms of what impact it has on the future, I think that it has a couple of impacts. Number one, I believe that with the experience being created in the interface of the employees and the customer, the employee or the innovation on the edges or the employee has become more important than ever before. To Clay's argument that capital is a lot and then talent is less, to Gary's argument, the fact that we need to leverage talent more and ability to put people together to get more, all those are valid, and it is more valid because the core competitive advantage of experience is now being delivered on the edges. And therefore, unless you have a philosophy like the HCL philosophy of employees first, customers second, where the business of managers and management is to enthuse, encourage, enable those employees to create the innovation or create the unique experience for your customers, which is your competitive advantage, you would not be able to stay relevant for your customers. So the underlying emphasis of technology and underlying what it is doing to brick and mortar company is a lot more profound, I think, than a lot of brick and mortar companies are willing to accept.
I see. Thank you very much. A second idea that has been provided by the former panel is that, in a way, and especially Roger insisted on that, in a way Clay as well, and Gary, of course, was pushing very much in that direction too, is that it is no longer only a CEO's responsibility about innovation, but innovation has also to be a governmental, a nation effort, not only something that comes from companies, but also from institutions, I would say. Rick, I know this is one of your fights, of your struggle of your life, in a way. How do you see that, and what do you understand in what has been said before on that? What is your viewpoint on that?
As we were talking yesterday in this CEO roundtable, my belief is that at the very core, the responsibility of us leaders of companies is the sustainability of the enterprise. And innovation is only one part of those things in your arsenal. I was taken so much today, always when I hear Roger talk, but also Gary was alluding to it, that this incredible need in our capitalist model for a more democratic form of it, and that it's got to start changing the kind of people that run our companies today. It is, I mentioned the fact that we were talking about Mitterrand in France earlier, and there was a guy before you, Jacques Attali, before you used to walk into Mitterrand's office, you used to have to walk by Attali's office, and he wrote a great book. It's about 25 years ago, and called Millennium, and he basically said the number one thing we'd be dealing with in the new millennium was violence from have-nots. And this is related back to the social democracy of it. We've always had have and have-nots in the world. Modern business is an invention of the 19th and 20th centuries, but you didn't have technology, and it's like you'll talk to so many people who grew up without, and you always hear the story, I was poor, but we didn't know it. Well, now it's in your face. Interesting. I'm reading this morning the New York Times, the international edition, New York Times this morning. This is on one page, on the op-ed page. On the left-hand side, it's don't ask how to feed 9 billion people. And the core concept here is it's not a question of we can't make the food, it's a question of they don't have the $20 in their pocket to buy the food, even if you're talking about the Belgium Congo. On the right-hand side, this entire spread is the International Luxury Conference in Miami Beach. And I ought to read you the brands. This is the issue. It's out there and right in front of us. And I think more of our leaders today need to start talking about your role is not just to build companies, but how do you create more opportunities for people out there? Because poor people don't want to be poor people.
Clear. By the way, you're mentioning Attali. I'd like to bounce on it a little bit, and because Attali, is someone who is preaching today one idea that is puzzling a little bit. He says, politics has failed and lost the battle because economy has won the battle. Why? Because politics are local and economy is global, and you never can win when you're local, while a global system is definitely dominating. What do you think about this? Do you think it's right?
I think what you're starting to see is the failure of the democratic model right now with capitalism right now. They're running out of resources. We talked earlier that when you see it move, as we see populist movement in Europe, there's great unrest, more people vying for scarce resources that are really in the hands of very, very few. And then what you get into a doom loop situation. More of the politicians become populists who are vying for more wealth transfer. And then the things that are transferred, and because of the new structures, it's a disincentive for new wealth creation. And then you get into a Venezuela situation, which is now on its way to a Cuba situation. That's where more and more what you're seeing is corporations, and particularly, I think, our associates, our employees, looking for trust they once put in their governments. Now that allegiance is to the company, and their passport, it isn't nationalism in it anymore. It's what am I part of? We can almost now move any of our people anywhere in the world because generally their first allegiance is this covenantal relationship, this La Cosa Nostra, this thing we do. And that's taking care of them better
Of the people
than,
the
for
governments do.
example, the French government.
Actually, this is interesting because in the room we have some friends and loyal friends from L'Oréal. You know, they've been very loyal to the Global Drucker Forum, actually. And recently, the CEO of L'Oréal, Jean-Paul Agon, was explaining that the future is management by generosity, which is sometimes new in a way, because you don't even see companies like L'Oréal preaching for generosity and so on. And he said this is not about moral or ethics or whatever. It is about making sure that wherever we are in the world, for instance, if our employees do not benefit locally from the social benefits they should have, then the company should then take care of them if the governments can't do them. So you see, this is something that definitely might be moving on in a couple of years, but definitely it's interesting to listen to that kind of leaders who are preaching also for that kind of evolution in the management system, yes. One of the questions I have maybe to you, Nancy, is that you've been a professional of unleashing innovation in a way, in an organization. What advice would you give to governments or to, let's say, the institutions to do kind of the same at a more political or global level?
I guess a couple things to think about. Unleashing innovation, I think, says that there is something in our DNA that all of us want to innovate, all of us want to be creative. It's almost like a natural resource that's just under the surface that needs to be mined. In companies, that has to do with changing the infrastructure. And at Whirlpool, an important ingredient was defining what we meant by innovation. So once we could define it and train people on tools that everyone could use. But I think about a lot of what we do, or at least that I do at Whirlpool, is work in the community with NGOs and nonprofits and use innovation tools to help solve community problems. The other thing I've done at the University of Chicago, I taught in the MBA school and ran a lab and had the students go out and work with governmental agencies to try to figure out how would you define innovation in a government sector. It's very different than a for-profit. So I think two things, really understanding that individuals really want to innovate, and what's getting in the way is this infrastructure that's been created over years, and figuring out how to break down that infrastructure to make innovation come alive.
Vineet, it's interesting because you're a big promoter of this idea of decentralized innovation, which in a way goes in the other direction of saying government maybe should be more active in unleashing innovation, so which means in a way centralizing it as well. So what is your view on this?
Let me start with the story, which is to this point, that there is a guy who called a plumber to his house, and then the plumber sat down and this guy started talking about, I bought this house for $60 million, it is on a beach, and this is the chair Bill Clinton sat, and this is the chair Gary Hamel sat, and this is the chair you sat. And he went on and talking about the paintings and the roof and all that stuff about the beautiful building. After 1 hour, the plumber says, where the hell is the leak?
Yeah.
Now, if you really look at our organizations we run, most of the CEOs are telling their employees how great the organization is. In 1960, we were number one. In 1970, we were on our way to the moon. And all the employees thinking is, where the hell is the leak? And And in the absence of telling, being transparent and transferring the authority and transferring the ownership of change in form of innovation to the employee is working at what I call 20% clock speed instead of working at 80% clock speed. And therefore, the biggest transformation the organizations have to think about. At HCL Technology, this is the way we thought about it. We said, what is our core business? And we defined our core business is to create differentiated value for our customers compared to how our competitors can create, whether it is through disruption, to Clay's point, or through incremental change. Where does this differentiated value in our business, which is IT services, get created? It gets created in the interface of employees and our customers. That's the value zone. The value zone is not next to the CEO office. The value zone is next to the interface between the customer and the employees. So that's the value zone. And who are the people who are creating the differentiated value which will help us grow faster? Our employees. That brings us to the fundamental question. Then what should the business of managers and management be? And the answer to that question is the business of managers and management can be nothing, logically, other than enthusing, encouraging, enabling the employees to do what they do or what they want to do rather than what the CEO wants them to do so that you can grow faster. So we increased our revenues by 700% in 7 years' time, added $20 billion to market cap, not by innovating on what we do, but by innovating on how we do it. So my belief is whether it is decentralized innovation or, as Gary was referring, decentralizing decision-making, we need so many vice presidents? The whole idea is, can you train the organization? Can you culturally transform the organizations so that there are a million decisions rather than few decisions? And in those million decisions, you can spot the disruptive ideas and put all the investment behind those disruptive ideas. And the CEO can focus on those 5 ideas, where the large organization can focus on the million decisions and the million innovations. And that is the way you can increase the clock speed of the organization. And that is the way you can get the measure, whether it is the ROI or some other measure, your organization is going to significantly outperform your competition.
Clear. I don't know if you remember, but Charles Handy explained us last year or maybe the year before that work yesterday was I hire someone and I will tell the person what to do. I will dictate to the person what to do. And he said this should be banned from the word of job should be banned from the English language, he said, because work tomorrow will be I hire you for what you've chosen to do, which is a completely different story. And this is where also maybe there's a shift.
Yeah, and I'd like to just bring out a statistic Roger quoted yesterday over the evening, and I think that alarmed me quite a lot. He said a very large percentage, I think he talked about 65%, a very large percentage of people in the US, their jobs doesn't allow them to think, right? It is doing. And if you have corporations like that, and if that statistic is true, then those organizations are in trouble.
Exactly. Let's move to the last part of my questions, and then we go to the audience. My last question goes to you, Vineet, and you, Rick, in a way. Is capitalism still democratic today? We know that in the United States there is this debate between the trickle-down economy and the middle-out economy. So what is your position on that? What is your opinion on that?
It's interesting, Richard, the whole theme here is have we reached a turning point? I think almost every point is a turning point, but I think there was September 11th was a turning point with regard to back to Jacques Attali's themes of violence and whether it's religious extremism or have-nots and discontented starting to take action against it. I'm going to come at it the other way, that I see now the more exciting companies are the companies that are creating opportunities for people. Go back to a behaviorist. I don't know what behaviorist I was going to at that particular time. She said to me, there's no such thing as lazy people. There are only uninspired people. And if you give people inspiration and an opportunity, they grow their lives from the person they could become potentially. And we have an operating philosophy that all a company is a collection of people. And if you bring people in, and part of what you give them as a charge is we want you to be able to grow in to the manifestation of the best you could be. And you provide that operating landscape for them to, in fact, grow. You provide them the counseling, you provide development, then that they don't disappoint you and they don't leave. Where am I going with this? There are some new companies out there, and I never will forget sitting with, I was trying to recruit Meg Whitman when she was running eBay, and we weren't meeting in a meeting room because I said, where are the meeting rooms? She said, no, I have my cubicle. I said, well, let's go meet in your cubicle. And I was trying to recruit her on the Boys and Girls Club of America board. And she really took the time to help me understand the eBay model, that it wasn't a top-down, trickle-down model. She said, Rick, what we show people how to do is to become entrepreneurs, how to build their own businesses, one at a time, all over the world, with utilizing the skills and the stuff and the things that they have. And then I go back to the situation in this world, between the haves and the have-nots, between Europe not having enough jobs. Well, the jobs used to be either agrarian or small businesses here. We've got to find more of these companies that can create that. Apple, there was a wonderful article several years ago that took an iPhone and showed where every component came from and the jobs that it created around the world. Very interesting model. I wrote down another one. Nike, my friends at Nike makes nothing. They do marketing very well. They may make an insole now and then, but they create jobs and new standards and empower people all over the world. And if you'll forgive me doing the commercial, we have 3 million women. We go into a country, even at, they call it at Davos now, the Tupperware effect. We microfinance her. We give her free training. She gets a success coach. She goes out and does it. And she then has confidence. When she has confidence, then she has influence. And it changes everything. It's interesting, we did a global fairness initiative, came to us last year and said, we want to see if this really does work. So we did research in Indonesia, largest Muslim population in the world, and in Mexico. Thousands of interviews. Here's the 4 things they found that our business did. Number 1, she moved from lower class to middle class. 2, she became connected, 70%, computer or smartphone. And connected woman, whoa, get out of the way. Okay. Thirdly, her self-image changed from I'm not good enough to I am good enough, and 1/3 even said I'm a leader. And I think the 4th one is the one I'm the most proud of. In a world where 1 out of 3 women is abused, he went from abusing her to appreciating her to, oh my God, helping her. And it changed things. So I just happen to believe that we've got to, this is very much like Vineet, turn these companies upside down. How do we do things from the bottom up? And then you empower them, enable them, that'll push it up. And there's a lot of good companies like that.
Vineet, you went even further, because in a way you not only turned the company upside down, but you turned yourself upside down in a way. You left around the age of 50, was what, 35 maybe? And why did you decide to leave? You were a successful CEO, you kind of led a revolution for the world with your book, and suddenly, boom. No.
So first, a quick correction. I think I quoted that statistics as Richard. It was Roger Martin's statistics yesterday. So when I turned 50, I looked back at my life and saying, what the hell am I doing, right? So this whole front page article in newspapers and Fortune magazines was great, but are you really making a difference to where it matters most? And when I looked at the problems which were on the social sector, I found myself sitting in multiple panels like this, criticizing the government on what they are not doing. And it came to my mind that I can criticize till the cows come home, but nothing is going to move. So can I participate in that transformation? And there are more and more people like me who have started thinking on those lines of not just cutting hundreds of millions of dollars of check for philanthropy, but actually stopping doing what they are doing and putting all their time, 100% of their time, into bringing about large-scale social change. So we focus our attention in Sampark Foundation on 100 million children in the class 1 to class 5 who can't speak English and can't add even at the age of 15, and said, can we do frugal innovation and reach these 100 million children in a very short span of 5 years' time with our resources, with catalysts through the government, and reach these children and transform their lives. If we can do that, then it is worth it. And that's the attempt which Sampark Foundation is doing. In 1 year's time, we've already crossed 1 million children. And the amount of innovation we are bringing in and the way the education transformation is taking place is significantly larger than all the time I spent talking about what the government should do. So I believe that in India, I'm seeing more and more people giving up their corporate hat and saying, enough, I've done enough, although there is a lot needs to be done, focusing their attention not on the by heart social sector, but by innovation social sector, and bringing frugal innovation to the villages, whether it is water, electricity, empowerment of panchayats, or education. And there is huge amount of transformative work which is happening now in India, which is amazing.
Thank you for that, the meaning of life. I had a president who had a phone message that was, I'm not available right now, but leave me a short message. So I'm going to ask you now, I will take 3 questions, 3 short questions. Okay? Are you ready, my friends, with the microphones? Yes, there is 1 question here. So first question to the panel.
Good afternoon, all our chief executive. From my experience, I can explain that I am also CEO and Professor of Management Studies and a Principal of Private Sector College. It is not easy to innovate and implement something new without the stakeholder support. Mr. Nayar, it is not easy in India without the Indian government support. You cannot innovate anything else. And same thing in other countries. First, this innovation comes from the government heads. As you mentioned that the politician failed to the economists. And secondly, you cannot macro level, you cannot innovate. Innovation is a God-gifted, like Steve Jobs, like Steve Jobs, he was owner of the Apple Mac as well as director and CEO. As a result, he was able to innovate his new generation of iPhone. And same thing goes to Microsoft. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So it was more a statement than a question? Okay? Okay, 1 here, 1 there, all right. Maybe I will group the question. Ask your question, I take yours as well, and we'll see if we can combine the answers.
Thank you. Mark Beliski with the Carlyle Group. This is directed to Nancy, but the rest of the panel might want to also respond to this. How have you been able to weave innovation into the fabric of the culture of the organization and the process for that? I assume this has been a journey, and it's not been, and it's had its ups and downs. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second question was?
Abhinav Jha from India, one of the Drucker Challenge winners. My question is directed to Vineet. You talked about frugal innovations and government support and government acceleration for the programs that you're doing in India. Can you give us examples of the frugal innovations and what kind of resistance from the government do you have to face at times?
Okay, so these are 2 different questions. So Rick, maybe, first question.
No,
Nancy
go ahead.
also has an answer. And Vineet then?
I thought it was more a statement than a question.
Yeah, so should
Okay, good.
So I think there are two points there. Number one, to your point, in terms of the fact that innovation is very difficult in India, I think the country I stay in, called India, innovation is very easy. Because everybody is hungry, everybody wants change. The only thing is the ideas, not many people are contributing to the ideas. To your question, example on innovation, which is very interesting, we had to solve an English problem in a state which had 90,000 teachers, and 99% of them couldn't speak English. And I put my hand up and said, we will solve that problem. The question is, how do you solve the problem, given the fact that I have very limited resources? So the way we solve the problem is the fact that, can we have a radio which is cranked by not electricity, but you crank it up, and the radio runs for 60 minutes. Can you record the classes in the voice of a private school student of class 3 and 4, let's say Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star? Can you install that in the radio? In walks a teacher who can't speak English. She cranks up the radio, and the radio then plays Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and the class says Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So they get the pronunciation right, and the student and the teacher also gets the pronunciation right, and then she teaches it further. But the innovation on this was not that. The innovation on this is cultural innovation, which is, we said at the end of the week, this class will record on the same radio their Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, which will be compared to the private school Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and the teacher is going to say, beat it, meet it, or below it. After 17 days, I got a call from the chief minister saying, we have a problem. And I said, what's the problem? He said, the students don't want to go home unless they beat it. So now suddenly, from 90,000 teachers who couldn't speak English to 250,000 children who didn't want to study English, suddenly they want to beat it. So I think in innovation, it is not exactly what you do, but how you do it. And there is where the frugality. And how much money did we spend? Each radio is $6. So in $6 per class, we were able to transform the way education. Now we've got the enthusiasm problem solved. We still have to do a lot of work in effectiveness. So I believe the government is willing, if the idea is great, if you are willing to put your own resource at risk in making that happen. And India is a great place where all this can happen.
Rick, you want to say a word?
Yeah, I want to come off that on innovation. Very much Peter Drucker was about management, but that management was, when I believe, the sustainability of the enterprise. That's the reason you have management. And to have a sustained competitive advantage is why you need innovation. But I don't want it to get lost, as it so often is, on, you'll get McKinsey in and they said, okay, you either got to be low-cost supplier or differentiated products. Classic HBS thinking on that. And I said, wait. Innovation can be a combination of things of how you do it that provides you competitive advantage. I'll give you case in point, us as people would come look. When I came to the company 20-some years ago, the company thought their competition was Rubbermaid, making low-cost burping bowls. And I said, wait a minute, that isn't, they said, well, you either have to be a product or you're a channel. And I said, we're a gestalt. Let me tell you where we are today. Very much like Apple today, only $4 billion in any quarter of Apple's sales of their $36 billion quarters are laptops or desktops. That's, laptops and desktops have become commoditized today. Look at the value of Michael Dell Steel and Apple, and I'll show you. But there's all these things. We got out of basic food storage, and that's about a quarter of our business. What gives us innovation is the combination. At the core, we write the word relationships. Nothing is more powerful in the world than relationships with people you know and trust. Then we give a product that people would recommend to people they know and trust. Then we show a demonstration system. And by the way, there's a demonstration starting every 1.4 seconds. There's been a lot while we've been talking somewhere in the world. And lastly, opportunity for women. And in a world where women don't have opportunity, and particularly in the emerging market of the world, you put that thing together and then you unleash what we've unleashed. But the innovation didn't come from just one thing. It was the in sync of these things working together. And not enough people look at it holistically for this to find the pieces. They'll look at what's the product.
So as to close this session, I would like to ask you actually to give your view in a simple manner, which is a tweet. So be ready with your smartphones. I want to have 1,000 tweets on that session. So the tweet would be, so have we reached a turning point? So what would you say, Vineet? What is your opinion on that?
I think the threat in front of us is large, but converting that threat into an opportunity is what inspiration leadership is all about.
Thank you. Nancy, what would be your
I
tweet?
think I have a kind of a practical view on it. I think it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I think it's really hard to kind of get to the point where the turning point is behind you. And there's always a turning point that you have to kind of work at. And I think you have to have a kind of a long view of the world and a deep view of kind of human nature and what people are capable of, and you can move forward.
Thank you. And Rick?
As I said, the turning point was a wake-up call, and I think the words in German, genug is genug, enough is enough. Now we've got to start changing these things, or we're going to get more of what we've seen the last couple of years. And altruistically, it's not right, it's not justice, and we're better than that as humanity.
Thank you very much to the 3 of you for this nice panel. So genug is genug. Danke sehr.
Okay.